So friends, in the latest attempt to distract from the Trump-Epstein-Maxwell scandal, Donald Trump is, one, sending National Guard soldiers onto the streets of Washington, D.C., two, seizing control of the local city police department, the DC MPD, and three, taking 120 FBI agents away from their federal investigations and putting them on street patrol duty as if they were rookie police officers. You know, these moves are offensive, disrespectful, dangerous, and dictatorial. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, with this latest move to try to take over the District of Columbia, Donald Trump continues to try to destroy the institutions of government. He disrespects and demeans the good people who work for those institutions, and he endangers the people of the District of Columbia. Let's start with the new reporting. This from CNN. Headline, police and federal agencies scramble to figure out strategy after Trump's move to declare DC emergency. And that article begins, the Metropolitan Police, along with federal agencies tasked with helping curb crime in the nation's capital, are scrambling to figure out roles and strategy following President Donald Trump's decision to declare a crime emergency and federalize DC's police force. Multiple sources told CNN. This quote from Trump, quote, "We're going to restore the city back to the gleaming capital that everybody wants it to be," Trump said at the White House on Monday. Quote, "It's going to be something very special." But little communication seems to have been done before Trump's news conference. The Washington, D.C. mayor and police chief hadn't been told about the takeover until they watched Trump say it live. It's led to confusion over who now leads the MPD, how their policing strategy will change, and in what ways federal agents, many who aren't trained for community policing, are going to interact with local officers. So friends, let's talk about why this latest Trump insanity is offensive, disrespectful, dangerous, and dictatorial. Offensive. A convicted felon just seized control of a police department of a major American city. A criminal is now in charge of the cops, and not just any convicted felon. Someone who was also criminally indicted for launching an attack on the United States Capitol to try to steal a presidential election. An attack that resulted in more than 100 police officers being assaulted, being beaten by Donald Trump's supporters. He sent them to the Capitol. He told them to fight like hell or they won't have a country anymore. And he told them to stop the steal, stop the certification of Joe Biden's election win. They followed his criminal commands and they beat the hell out of police officers. And then he pardoned them. And some of the very same police officers that Donald Trump's supporters beat, assaulted, damn near killed, still work at the Metropolitan Police Department, and Donald Trump is now in charge of them. The demoralizing effect that will have on the rank and file is incalculable. And you know, this is much like putting a pedophile in charge of a daycare center, putting a convicted felon who ordered an attack on the Capitol that resulted in the assault of police officers, and then pardoning those who assaulted police officers, putting that person in charge of those very police officers and that very police agency, that's offensive in the extreme. Disrespectful. Donald Trump is taking reportedly 120 FBI agents, people with training and experience and investigative expertise in cases like interstate kidnapping, cyber crimes, terrorism, child sex trafficking, taking those agents with that experience and an active caseload working those kinds of cases and putting them on street patrol on the streets of Washington, DC. That is disrespectful of those agents and the work they are doing, the investigations they are running right now. And it's also disrespectful of the MPD patrol officers who have to develop a certain expertise of how to patrol the streets, how to interact with citizens and suspects in a way that honors MPD's general orders. Those are the orders that govern police conduct at the Metropolitan Police Department. General orders, rules, regulations, norms, laws, constitutional restrictions, prohibitions, and limitations. Patrol officers, street officers are steeped in all things Fourth Amendment. The protection against unreasonable searches and seizures. And friends, take it from somebody who gave training classes to the police, the Metropolitan Police Department officers and detectives for years. They were my partners in local crime fighting when I was a career prosecutor in Washington, D.C. The Fourth Amendment, there is nothing easy, straightforward, or intuitive about how to apply it in the street. You know, it has been developed and refined and fine-tuned over decades and decades of court opinions, and one word said or omitted can make the difference between a constitutional search and seizure and an unconstitutional search and seizure. So it is disrespectful to both FBI agents and MPD patrol officers. Dangerous. Armed National Guard soldiers are being put onto the streets of Washington, D.C. to perform civilian police duties, civilian law enforcement functions that they have no training to perform. Now, the National Guard is important to America's security. They support the military, the Army, the Air Force. They act as a reserve military component of sorts. They can and often do respond to natural disasters, hurricanes, floods, tornadoes. But they're not trained police officers. They're not equipped. They're not prepared. They're not trained to deploy to the streets to enforce the civilian laws of a U.S. city, Washington, D.C. And all the while, they will be carrying military weapons. You know, in the military, I was active duty Army for 6.5 years. We don't call them guns. We don't call them firearms. We call them weapons. And these National Guard soldiers will be armed with military weapons, being asked to perform a duty that they have not been trained to perform. You know, the danger in that is self-evident. Okay, friends, let's finish with dictatorial. There's a reason the Attorney General for the District of Columbia, Brian Schwalb, said the following, as quoted in this headline from The Hill: DC Attorney General, Trump actions unprecedented, unnecessary, and unlawful. Okay, friends, now let's turn to the DC law for just a minute to see what lawful authority, if any, a U.S. president has to seize control of the entire DC Metropolitan Police Department. And for this, we're going to look at the DC Code Section 1-207.40, for those of you scoring at home. And let me read just the pertinent part of that statute. It's titled Emergency Control of Police, and it reads in part, whenever the President of the United States determines that special conditions of an emergency nature exist which require the use of the Metropolitan Police Force for federal purposes, he may direct the mayor to provide him such services of the Metropolitan Police Force as the President may deem necessary and appropriate. So now, let's see in how many ways Donald Trump violated that law. First of all, there is no special condition of an emergency in D.C. There's no crime emergency in D.C. In fact, friends, listen to this DOJ press release from this past January. Violent crime in D.C. hits 30-year low. Washington. Total violent crime for 2024 in the District of Columbia is down 35% from 2023 and is the lowest it has been in over 30 years, according to data collected by the Metropolitan Police Department and announced by United States Attorney Matthew Graves. In addition to the overall violent crime reduction, homicides are down 32%, robberies are down 39%, armed carjackings are down 53%, assaults with a dangerous weapon are down 27% when compared with 2023 levels, with the district reporting the fewest assaults with dangerous weapons and burglaries in over 30 years. So, given that there is no special condition of an emergency, a crime emergency in D.C., that's violation of the law number 1 by Trump. Violation number 2, under the law, he may direct the mayor to provide services. He didn't even call the mayor. He didn't even contact the mayor. She learned about it when he was running his mouth in a televised press conference announcing that he now has control of the DC Metropolitan Police Department. That's the second violation of the statute. Violation number 3. Services of the Metropolitan Police Force can be provided for a federal purpose, not for D.C. city law enforcement purposes. That would be violation of the law number 3 by Trump. And finally, nowhere in the statute does it authorize a president to seize control of the entire D.C. MPD. Nowhere. That would be violation of the law number 4. You know what, friends? Ironically and tragically, there actually was a time when Donald Trump should have called up and deployed the National Guard. There actually was a day when Donald Trump should have contacted Mayor Bowser and said, I desperately need the Metropolitan Police Department forces, the officers, the investigators, the detectives, for a federal purpose. You know what day that was. And I think it was summed up nicely by this recent post by New York Times reporter Peter Baker. The worst single-day crime spree in modern Washington history, of course, took place on January 6, 2021. Trump issued no order to the National Guard to intervene. Mike Pence did. And later, Trump pardoned the perpetrators. So when the DC Attorney General says that Trump's actions are unprecedented, unnecessary, and unlawful, I will add that they are also offensive, disrespectful, dangerous, and dictatorial. And they cannot stand. Because justice matters. Friends, as always, please stay safe. Please stay tuned. and I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.